guys. Hey guys, glad to see everybody here. It's December. Can you believe it's December? Anyway, this is going to be a little bit longer one today. It's a topic leading into some things that we're going to be doing over the next week or so. But I recently had a fairly big chat with a friend of mine who experienced what most of us would consider to be the unthinkable with one of her dogs. And I was thinking that the questions that I was asking her might actually be good questions to share with you guys and see how that would affect you, how it would affect you. Really get you thinking about some things that maybe, that most of us don't actually think about until we get to that point. So in her case, what was a seemingly innocuous event, something that happens to all of us. The dog ate something that they shouldn't eat. Turned into a staph infection, which turned into a 4-leg amputation, which ended up being a very long stay at the veterinarian. Now, what the dog ate was a barbecue skewer. And I know that sometimes we think, oh, why would anybody leave those lying around? But dogs get into stuff. They just do. It was one of those bamboo barbecue skewers. But I know that mine have picked those up, and I know that mine have chomped those. And so those 4 things happened: a staph infection, a 4-leg amputation, a long stay at the vet, and all the while, she was trying to hold together life with her husband, with a very young toddler, another dog, and building a business. You've heard me say it all the time. Can you possibly imagine what that is like? And I know a lot of you can. You've experienced things in your life that just send you into a topsy-turvy. It's like getting run into by a Mack truck. And I thought, okay, so let's go think about that. So, and I'll also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the questions that I asked her, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my take on what I thought about it, if that's okay with you guys. Does that make sense? Okay, so here goes. The first question that I asked was, I'm sorry, that's not the first question that I asked. I'm going to ask you the question because I knew the answer to this with her. Do any of your dogs have a challenge? Maybe a physical personality that needs special attention? What, are they reactive? Are they aggressive? Or are there anything like that? Do you have anything in any of your dogs that are, you remember on Friday in our Facebook Live, we talked about the special needs dogs. Are any of your dogs already special needs dogs, where they need that extra special cup of extra love from you? And in her case, one of them was. And this happened to be the dog. What would you do if something happened to one of your dogs? Do you know who that you would turn to? Would you get on Facebook? I know it's interesting. I find this fascinating is that people have what I know is a potentially life-threatening thing going on with the dog, and they're on Facebook asking people they have no idea who they are, what they would do instead of going to the vet. So my question is, what would you do? Who would you turn to? Who has your back? So in anything, whether it's your kids, whether it's your business, whether it's whatever, who has your back? If something goes off the rails, who do you turn to? And are you doing anything specific with your dogs? Are you doing any specific dog sports? Is your dog a therapy dog? Are they a service dog? Are they anything? Is there anything specific that you're doing with your dog that maybe you could be doing something more with? So her dogs were agility dogs. In the world that I was in before, people have these things called agility dogs. The dogs. But the dogs that they got specifically to do agility with. And in this case, this was an agility dog. So do you, with your own dogs, for whatever you might be doing with them or not doing with them, do you have a specific plan for their wellness, for their overall maintenance, and for improving their performance? Do you have a plan? Or are you just winging it? Because don't get me wrong, guys. Don't get me wrong. Winging it is okay if winging it is what you want to do. That's not my style. Excuse me. My throat's a bit dry today, so you're gonna see my promo for Tim Hortons Christmas cups. If winging it is what works for you and you're not interested in trying anything else, cool. And that's perfectly fine. But I always encourage people to, at least every once in a while, dip your toe in the other side and see what it's like to just try something a little bit different. That 1% is not going to kill you. So let's go back. When the unthinkable happened, this dog got immediate vet care. Immediate vet care. She got everything that she needed and everything seemed fine. She got the antibiotics. She got the appropriate aftercare. She got all of the things that were necessary to deal with the aftermath of having eaten something that she shouldn't have eaten. And everything should have been fine, right? That's what we leave the vet with, all that stuff, and everything should have been fine. And in 95% of the cases, it is. Yeah, there's the odd time, well, maybe more than the odd time, that you take your dog, a female dog, in to get her spayed, and she chews the stitches out and gets an infection. Well, that's pretty common, and that's almost routine. But in this dog's case, there was an infection. And the question that I'm asking you is, do you know how to spot an infection as early as possible? Do you know what it even looks like? Do you know what the signs are? Holy cow, there's so many people that don't. And so when the dog is released and they're given the antibiotics, they kind of go like this and turn a blind eye to the actual spot that was the compromised spot. And with an infection, obviously, you need to be checking. Ever got something stuck underneath your fingernail? And then the next, in 24 hours or so, the end of your finger was really, really hot? That's an infection. So heat, and of course, your dog isn't going to tell you. It's not going to go around and go, my spot's hot. So you have to be checking. And the challenge is the dog's body temperature is higher than ours. So it's important for you to know before you get into that situation, what is your dog's natural temperature? Now, I remember I shared this in the blog that I did after I lost Ducati back in August, that when I was at the vet, when she was in recovery and she was just at the very early edges of the recovery, I had my hands on her and something in my brain said, she's colder than I think that she should be. But then another part of my brain said, but I knew that she had an infection, so she would have been warmer to start with. So maybe this is her normal. Now, this is where listening to your gut really comes into play, and I didn't. And in fact, what happened is, and what happens with senior dogs is that they, because the blood pressure goes down so low, they get cold. And I honestly believe that that was a contributing factor to why her heart kind of gave up and then gave up again and then gave up again. But I knew what and she slept beside me, so I knew what her body temperature should be. So that's the piece to think about. Do you know, number one, how to spot an infection? Do you know what the temperature is? What an incision? If it's incision, do you know what it should look like as it's healing healthily or as it's healing unhealthily? And she knew. She knew the signs. Took the dog back to the vet immediately. They tried to resolve it, and she was told the leg had to come off. And the question to consider, like I don't know what I would do. I'm very honest here. I do not know what I would do if the vet said to me the dog's leg has to come off. I don't. For a variety of different reasons. So the question to consider, and I've been in this exact position recently, so I do know how that feels, is, do you get a second opinion? Is there time to get a second opinion? Do you reach out to somebody else and ask them? And what if we do all that and the dog doesn't survive? That was the question that I was asking myself. What if I do the surgery with Ducati? And what if she doesn't live? So those are the things to consider. And that's what the person I was chatting with had to consider. All of those different things. Does she get a second opinion? Who was there time to do it? When you've got an infection, and in my case, that was the exact scenario. I didn't know if she could make it another 24 hours. I just didn't. So I didn't know if there was enough time. And I didn't know who to reach out to because it was the weekend. I knew who to reach out to. I didn't know whether I could get to them beyond the people I'd already talked to. But in my case, and I'm going to share my case, it was almost a non-issue because I knew that without the surgery, the infection would kill her. And with the surgery, she might not make it. And that was simply because she was a senior dog, and senior touching into the geriatrics. So the issue of anesthesia exponentially increases the risk with the senior dogs. So that's what I was dealing with. That was not the scenario of the person that I was chatting with. Now, the question that I want to pose to you, and I want to share what I've been thinking about, is what could I have done differently? Knowing now what I know, that she couldn't survive the surgery. Not that it makes any, obviously, it doesn't make any difference to what I would do, but for the future, what could I have done differently? And the one thing that I thought about is, could I have tried doubling up on antibiotics? Like, just, I don't like using this term, but just nailing her with antibiotics. Knowing what I know now, that she couldn't survive the surgery. Again, just things to think about. So, with the dog with the amputated front leg. So in the aftercare after the operation. So if you're familiar with an amputation, it's a huge. So now they've got the infection under control. They've got that out of the way. Now they've got the leg off, and now they've got a huge open area. So everything is bandaged up, 4-leg amputation. So you've got everything from here right to there, all the way down almost to the spine, bandaged up and wrapped around the neck and so on. You've got that, and it's got to be looked after. It's a massive incision that's got to be looked after. And it's got to be looked after in the vet. So it's like hospital visits, daily, sometimes semi-daily, and the dog stayed at the vet for a long time because that's what needed to happen. It's not something that could be dealt with in the regular thing. So the question that I want to ask you is, do you or could you find the time and financial means? Because remember, we're not talking about just time here. We're talking about the financial means to do this, to have the support systems, to be able to do that. So in my friend's case, she was able to go to the vet once, twice, more a day, and be with the dog, because she happened to be not employed at the time. She was on leave. But do you have or can you find the time and the financial means to be able to handle all this? Do you have the support system? So you remember, she had another dog, she had a young child, she had her house, she had her business, all those things. Do you have a support system to help you? Now there's three stages. So you can say, yeah, I do, because you're thinking it's only going to be a couple of days, but what if it turns into a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, something like that? You've got the time that the dog is at the vet. You've got the time that the dog is at home in at-home care. And then you've got the third stage. So those would be the first two. And then you've got the third stage, which is the recovery and the rebuild. Because in this case, there is a whole lot of rebuilding necessary. Because now the dog has to relearn how to walk, how to move, because she's missing a leg. Her whole body has to shift, and you have to help her with all those things, plus even just simple eating, getting the head down. So let me call it a safety net. Do you have a safety net? Again, these are just questions that I was asking. It's a composition of the question. They weren't all exactly like this, but this was the idea of what I asked her. And it's things that I think that we need to be thinking about and putting into place. So that's the safety net. So the next step was, just like in our human crises. So a lot of us, if you're my age or actually, if you're any age, you've probably had a scenario where you needed to be visiting someone in the hospital on a regular basis. My brother had pneumonia when he was quite young. He was under 10, and I remember we had to go to the hospital to visit him every day. My dad had triple bypass surgery 2 years ago. We had to go and visit him. My mom's back looks like Spider-Man, a Spider-Man web or Iron Man suit. Her back is, if she was to get acupuncture, it would probably go bing when they put the needle in, because she's got so many metal plates and stuff, and she has very little spine bone. So she had major back surgery from neck right down to the back, and in another city. So we had to go and look after that. So those are things to think about. they're challenging. So my question was, what do you do for self-care? Because we're no good to anybody else if we're burnt out, if we're exhausted, if we're, we're just not there. So you have to keep that in mind. So if you're looking after a dog in this scenario, or bringing in a litter of puppies and anything like that, you need to be looking after your own self-care, whether it's for your business. And I just think if you're doing anything with dogs, you've got to be looking at your self-care, because it's so easy, especially you guys that are teaching other people's dogs and so on. It's so easy to get dragged into the, you teach them in a class for 45 minutes or an hour, and then you've got people, asking you questions afterwards. And if you don't have boundaries, and if you don't look after your back because you're always bending over, or all those different things, you're not going to be your very best. Second, other things to ask yourself is, where are you going to find the strength, the inspiration, and the motivation to keep doing all the things that are essential for the recovery of this dog? Where are you going to pull those from? Are you going to pull them from books or podcasts or YouTube or friends in your in a Facebook group? Because you need those, because it's exhausting. You're trying to be so positive and keep everything, all those positive vibes, all those things generate, and get that energy into the dog so the dog recovers correctly. But you've got to be fueled up. And if you're not fueled up, you can't energize and transfer that to the dog's recovery. So as you can imagine, the bill was staggering, like staggering. And in fact, I was just on a walk yesterday with one of the people here in the town who has a mini doodle, whose dog has for as long as I've known. Now, he's a 5-year-old dog. For the last couple of years, he's had a hitch, a substantial hitch in his right rear. And she said to me, he just started doing some rehab because the vet said, because he has ruptured a disc in his back, that it's $11,000 for the back surgery. Now she, as it turns out, is going to my amazing friend, Carrie Smith, canine rehab specialist. She is amazing. And the change in the dog has been exceptional. But $11,000, and that's what she said. I'm not paying $11,000. It says, if we can do it, bring him back to 90% without doing surgery, I'm good with that. So in this case, the bill was staggering. So you can imagine we've got an infection that goes wrong, and not a simple infection, a staph infection. We've got a leg amputation, and then we've got all the stay time at the vet and all the veterinary time. So yeah, staggering. And a GoFundMe was set up, which, because of the reputation and the influence this person has in our world, it easily got to $10,000. Like very, 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 very quickly got to $10,000, and it went beyond that and was used. And kudos to her, because there are some people that don't have that impact, don't have that positive connection, don't have that, they haven't brought their best to the community. And in her case, she did. And I absolutely love that. My question is, do you have a community? Who would you turn to? Because, here's another thing. I'm not a big believer in GoFundMes. I think they're overused, because I think to a great degree, it's and please don't take me wrong in this. There are some people who honestly need it. But for most people, they could find a way to do it. And I think sometimes that having that there and knowing that they could go out and do that, sometimes they make decisions that they maybe shouldn't do, or they would have made a different decision. So let's hop into stage 3. That was just my little thing on GoFundMe's, because I do know people who have abused what I would consider to abused it. You know, when they're using them multiple times, no. So let's hop down to stage 3, recovery and rebuilding, because a lot of people come into my world, online and offline, at that stage where the dogs have had something happen, but now they're like, I need to bring the dog back. Now remember, in the dog that I'm talking about, the person that I was chatting with, this particular dog was already on a wellness maintenance plan before her accident. She was already doing all of the things. She was getting regular massage. She was getting regular chiro. She was getting regular everything. So she was already on that plan. So I want you to think about what you're doing. And why I say that is because one of the benefits that this particular dog had, and this owner had, is that because the dog was already so well conditioned and understood the value of hands-on, of massage, and of veterinary and canine healthcare professionals really being in her space, there was never an issue of the dog biting or the dog responding poorly, because the dog already got that all that was a good thing. And I think that's important. That's what you would have heard me talk about when we were talking about in massage and rehab and all those different things that we've talked about over the last few weeks, is the earlier that you introduce those to your dogs, the better it is. It really is. And we had a scenario here. My daughter-in-law's dog, she's a really kind of chunky lab. Let's call her a pit bull. She's a mutt. She's a black mutt with big legs and a pointy snout and about side. She got into a little tussle with my daughter's, again, pit bull mix, who's another lab and something. She's a hillbilly. She's a hillbilly dog. They got into a tussle, and one of them got a chomp through a leg. Not holes, but just a chomp, and she's limping. And we were talking about that. So I was observing her, and making a few suggestions of what I think might be helpful to her. And then out of the blue, she said, my daughter-in-law said, whenever we go to touch that leg, she tells us off. And it's like, yeah, because it hurts. But if the dog is, and this is a dog that's never had any hands-on type stuff or anything like that. So that's something you want to think about, is you want to think about how beneficial will it be down the road to do that, because it's a huge advantage. It really is. It's a huge advantage to your dog if they already have that. So those are a bunch of questions. Again, it's a little bit longer one, but a whole jam-packed number of questions. And I can't share this, but if you know someone who will benefit from hearing this, DM me and I can send you it in a form that can be shared. You can't share videos out of the closed group. So None of us knows ever what the future is going to bring. We just don't. How long the body's going to hold up, theirs or ours. But with the right knowledge, the heart, and commitment, we can always be prepared to support our dogs well. We hope that the unthinkable doesn't happen, but there are times that it just does. And the more prepared we are, the more tools we have in our toolbox, the better off we're going to be. So if you haven't already got on the wait list for the Fit Body, Fit Mind Dog monthly membership, it's opening next week, Wednesday the 11th. I realized my date in one thing was wrong. So Wednesday the 11th, it is only open for 3 days, the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. That's it. If you're interested in getting in their monthly membership, it's where we talk about all of the different things. I think we've done some amazing stuff in there so far, and it's just kept getting better. It's like it's an extra toolbox. So make sure that you get onto that wait list. I will put a link up somewhere so that you can get at it. I hope you enjoy this. If you're watching this after the live, which I think most people will be, feel free to comment in the side. Anything you have, because I go back and I look at these comments and I will answer them. So please, anything you're thinking, just jot them down on the side there, and we'll get a little conversation going. Because I know that there are some of you out there who are going, yeah, I know exactly what it feels like when the unthinkable happens. And I have something that I think can help. Okay, with that, see you guys later.